Hi guys, and welcome to another review, and this time around I'm bringing you one more of those mega comparisons that I like doing, although this mega comparison is going to be focusing on 4 particular IEMs. I brought out all of these obviously then to serve as a basis of comparison. The prices or the price range of these IEMs is a little bit varied. It goes from all the way from $100 roughly all the way up to $600. But anyway, there are several factors which led me to make this wide selection. Not only because of the prices of the base IEMs that I will be talking a little bit more in detail about, and what their price are, but as well what they actually compare to in terms of other IEMs. Anyway, let me just quickly run you through what I have here so you guys can understand. This first IEM I have here is the Moritz Dragon, single DD IEM from a company called Moritz out of Hong Kong. It's a single DD, costs around $650, so big money. It's got a beryllium coated or beryllium driver. I will assume, I'm not 100% sure, so I will assume that it's a full beryllium driver, in a nicely done resin shell. I mean, the IEM does look the business, although when you actually hold it in your hand, it doesn't exactly convey the biggest sensation of, let's say, sturdiness or of let's say quality, or it just looks very fragile. It feels very fragile. You can see inside the shell. The shell is basically empty, so there's no fancy techniques being used here in terms of what they've done internally. It's what you can see actually, if you notice carefully, is that the IEM is positioned very much up against the nozzle. Let me see if I could focus this. There we go. Okay, so it's very much faces the whole nozzle. There's a venting hole. Let me see if I can show this. This is not easy. Okay, there's a venting hole over there, and the venting of the actual nozzle, the front venting hole, if you look carefully on the nozzle, you will see there. You will no, not easy to focus this. My apologies. There you go. You can see there the pin on the actual gold nozzle for the front vent. Let's put it that way. And then there's the other vent over there. All right. Anyway, as I said, $600, just over $600 price range. You know, I received this as part of a tour, so I didn't receive it with its, let's say, full package. It just came with its case, which is a nice enough case. Brings a little protection here for the actual IEMs themselves, some tips, exchangeable terminations for the cable. Simple, nothing too, nothing too overboard. Like I said, at $600, to be honest, because I didn't receive the whole full package, I cannot 100% talk about what I would expect from the accessories package. But at $600, I was maybe thinking maybe the cable could have been a little bit better. It isn't bad, but again, it is not it isn't anything special. Okay. Next to that, I've got here the Moondrop Kadenz. This is their latest, let's say, mid-tier flagship. The real flagship DDs that's in the hands of the Twilight, and the brand name Soft Tears, of course. And then you still had the ultra high ends, which were the Turi and the Turi TI. But anyway, this is the Kadenz, their flagship mid-tier, let's put it that way. Beautiful build. I mean, when you look at this build and you compare it with the Moritz that I just showed you, this just looks the business. Very sturdy shell, beautiful design. It's got, I don't know, I just like this graphic, I don't know, it almost kind of has an Art Deco kind of feel to it at the same time. Has latest generation driver, which I believe is that magnesium alloyed diaphragm driver. The stock cable as well. The only issue here with the stock cable is the actual termination. I would have liked a nicer termination. They could have done a little bit of a better job there, you know. In terms of the tips, it brings decent tips. I'm not going to deny that it doesn't bring decent tips, but the Moondrop tips have a tendency of being a little bit overly soft, and so they break seal very easily. So I opted here for these BGVP white bores, which in my opinion worked flawlessly, in my ears at least. Okay, in terms of price, it's around the $180 price bracket. This particular unit, I got it from HIFIGO, and again, like I said, you know, very nice in terms of the cable. In terms of the case, it brings this pack style case. It brings a dongle as well with it. It brings an adapter cable from the 4.4 to 3.5 single-ended. So in terms of accessories, I mean, I really can't fault Moondrop. They've done their work. It's a beautifully built shell. It brings a nice accessories package, and when you consider this is a third of the price of the Moritz, well, we've got a winner here straight away in terms of with regards at least to that aspect. Okay, so that's the Moondrop out of the way. Next to that, we have here the TinHifi T7. This is their latest IM and their flagship single DD. You could say it substitutes the T5S, and it follows a lot of the T5S's philosophy. I've also got the T5S here. Now we'll be talking about it in a little bit more detail a little bit later. Beautiful shell. I mean, really, again, you know, it's not that I'm taking anything away from the Moritz, other than the fact that it just looks a little bit not cheap. It just feels cheap because of the lightness that it has in that shell. But there's also a reason why they've done it that way, and we'll get to that in a second as well. This metal shell just looks flawless. Beautifully designed faceplate. Looks like wood. Has an MMCX cable, which is not exactly what I prefer, but I can't really complain. The cable, really nice cable. Has exchangeable terminations. It brings nice tips as well, although once again I'm just using the KBO7s because of the fact that they too are more sturdy in terms of their outer the outer section of the tip just holds together and stays together more firm, better than the stock TinHifi tips. The case is a big case. Yes, it's not exactly the most pocketable case, but you know for sure that things will be protected. And as I said, it's got plenty tips, termination. It's got some replaceable filters here as well for the nozzle when they get full of wax. So once again, and you know, priced at $200, roughly $200. Once again, TinHifi has ticked all the right boxes. My God, this thing doesn't want to focus today. They've accessorized well the IM. They've built a nice IM, and it's got its own, again, its own style of sound, much like the previous two. And then finally, an IM from Korea, which is the Ucotech, the R3. Again, beautiful cable. This is actually the stock cable, so really nice cable. Like I said, I would have liked to have seen Moritz do something like this, because this, we're talking about an IM that just cost over 100. This is $119 if I'm not mistaken, and it's the cheapest of this selection. Let's put it that way. Beautiful shell, beautiful shell. It apparently has some sort of venting network inside. It's got an unusual looking nozzle filter. I don't know if there's any particular reason why they've done it like that, but it's got a, you know, the shell, like I said, beautifully built. It looks sturdy, it looks the business. The ear hooks are a little bit on the tight side, so that's the only real thing I have here against it. I will be removing actually this plastic so that I can use it a little bit more, with a little bit more comfortably. And in terms of accessories as well, you know, decent accessories package. It doesn't have a nice case like, well, it doesn't have a nice case. It's got a decent case, but it's not as nice as these two previous ones because of the fact, whether I have it, oh yeah, I believe it's here somewhere. I think it's, yeah, there we go. It's just a more standard looking case. It's not that it's not nice, it's just a more standard looking case when compared to these ones from TinHifi, which just does look very premium, and to a certain degree as well the Moondrop one, they do look premium because of this kind of fake leather finish and so on. So that one just uses, the Ucotech just uses a very basic, more traditional type of case, but it does the job. It's, you know, protects the IM. So in terms of the cable, the tips that it brings as well, everything is fine. I am using the KB ears again, once again, for the same reason. I just like the fact that they are more sturdy in the way that they hold themselves together structurally when I put them inside my ears. That's it. Okay, all of them are using, like I said, 10mm drivers, different configurations in terms of the diaphragms used. The Ucotech uses the CNT diaphragm. Like I said, the Moritz is a beryllium. The Moondrop, I believe, is a magnesium alloy type of some magnesium type of alloy of diaphragm, and the TinHifi, I believe it's a DLC. Anyway, these are the contenders. What did I bring out here to kind of position them and help us put things into a better context? On the top there, I've got the let me actually just get it. I've got here the Clavelon Delta. This is an IM that also costs just over the $100 price bracket. This is from Linsol, an IM that has gone very much under the radar. Let's put it that way. It's got its more, let's say, common Harman tune, but it's nicely done. And the one thing that I will say that stands out here in the Delta for me is the timbre and the tonality, which is very correct. So we've got here the Delta. Next to that, one of my God, this thing today is giving me is really aggravating me. So next to that, we've got here the Oriolus Isabellae. This is the most expensive single DD that I own, although I bought this unit secondhand, so I paid a substantially less money. I mean, it uses the same philosophy, as you can see, as the Moritz. The driver sits very close to the nozzle. It's a huge driver. I mean, you really don't get a perception of how big it is. It's a huge driver structurally. Very nicely built resin shell. Look, if I have to compare this to the Moritz just on the basis of the shell and the build, this just tramples the Moritz completely. And we're talking $600, so we're talking roughly the same price point. Okay, so that's there we go. Next to that, oh my God, this is really being a mission today. Next to that, we've got here the Penon Vortex, another IM that has gone very much under the radar. Very, very tiny shell. Really nicely, I mean, very, very ergonomic, beautiful resin execution. Again, the driver sits up against the nozzle very close. There's a reason why that is done, and I'll tell you about it a little bit more when we're talking about the Moritz. Really nothing much I can say other than that it's got that perfect Penon type of sound, very neutral-ish across the board, everything sitting within a very tight band, and it just sounds phenomenal. It just absolutely sounds phenomenal. You know, when I actually took out the Vortex to use it for this review, I basically rediscovered why it is so good, and it actually surprises me why it doesn't get a little bit more love. I use it not only with these green tips which are stock, but also used it with the BGVP wide bore, and with the BGVP wide bore, it's I will say this, sound wise, with the BGVP wide bore it sounds better. With these tips it fits better, okay, but with the wide bore it just sounds incredible. Okay, so that's that. Next to that, God, I think I am going to lose it. Next to that, on the top there, I'm not going to grab it so that this doesn't unfocus all the time. Next to that, I've got the BQEYZ, the Cloud. Technically, it's a two driver, although one of them is a passive driver, much like the Fermat over here. So I left it here in this group because I will consider it a single driver, okay? Next to that, another phenomenal IM, and one of the best IMs, I think, in terms of single DDs, the Fiio or the Fiio, the JD15, using that great big 13.8mm driver. Tremendous IM. At the end there's something which shouldn't be in this group because it only costs $40, which is the Pirole Resin, and it's actually called the P1002. and it's here because it's also got a beryllium coated driver, in that case, not a full beryllium driver as Moritz states for the Dragon, but it's here for a particular reason, okay, and we'll get to that. Then here on this side we've got the Kima 2 and the Falcon Ultra. Again, two IEMs with very, I wouldn't say very distinct signatures. No, they've got some similarities, but either one of them is very well done. The Kima 2 is definitely the best of the Kima series, without question. With the BGVP wide bores, tremendous. I think again it's the same situation with this, is the terms of the fit of the tip, be it the BGVP wide bores or be it the SS tips, which I also like using them on the Kima 2. They both work phenomenally well. I would say maybe the BGVP edges out slightly in terms of soundstage and imaging, the SS, but the SS does fit a little bit better than the BGVP wide bores, okay? And the Falcon Ultra, tremendous IEM in terms of how it, again, gives us that more organic type of presentation. You know, there are IEMs here which are more organic, IEMs here which are more technically inclined, and this is that more organic type of presentation. It's got the exchangeable nozzles, which also allow for some versatility in terms of the tuning, much like the Fiio as well, and the offering some Simgot, although you know, I would say Simgot is the one here that you really see big differences when you start playing around with those nozzles. The rest, not really. Okay, next to that, the Simgots, the EA500 LM and the Fermat, the 1000 Fermat. Again, two drivers, one of them being a passive radiator, and it just, if I had the Cloud, it wouldn't make sense not to have this one. I would have liked to have included the Frost, but the Frost is effectively already two drivers actually working, because it's got a planar, a micro planar, and I wanted to keep things to single DDs. So that's the Fermat and the EA500 LM. In terms of prices, this is about $210, give or take. That's around $89, $90. As yeah, for the Dunos, again, this is about $180 something for the Falcon Ultra, just over $100 for the Kima 2. I think. Oh yes, and the price for the FD I get confused, FD JD. Well, the price for the Fiio is about $160, and the price for the Cloud is about the same thing, about $160. So as you can see, the majority of them, except for obviously the Pirole, which is the cheapest, and the Isabellae, they all sit within that $100 to $200 price point. Okay. Well, I guess the EA500 is also a little bit below that $100, but most of them are within that price point. Next to that, we've got another Ucotech, the RE1 Pro, and although it's cheaper than its brother, of course, it's about $89. It's here again for a very specific reason. Next to that, the Kato, just made sense to have the Kato. If I've got the Kadenz, have the Kato, of course. Next to that, the T5S, again, same situation. If I have the T7 T5S, is the obvious one to have. And then finally on this end, yeah, I've got here the Tanchjim Origen and the Oxygen, two equally phenomenal IEMs, both with slightly different tunings, but I mean, excellent IEMs. Okay, now let's jump into this, because this has been a long presentation. And I'm going to try and make these things as well as concise as possible. Moritz Dragon. The thing that strikes you immediately when you listen to it is how good the bass and how much extension the Moritz has. Crazy extension. There's loads of twinklies and sparklers, so detail retrieval is absolutely phenomenal. It's got a gliding style of bass with a focus on the sub bass, and you feel that sub bass. It really is something else, the sub bass here, and a lot of it comes down to the fact that they've used the resin shell, and the fact that the resin shell is very light, and very probably with using a very thin or thinner type of resin, does enable it to introduce some resonances that actually do help in creating that tonality, which is very pleasant in the Dragon. This is very much a tech or a method used as well many years ago with home speakers, where they would make the wood of specific parts of the speaker a little bit thinner than the rest of the structure, in an attempt to have that wood vibrate at certain frequencies and actually introduce its own, let's say, color, its own signature to the whole mix of the speakers, of the drivers, and everything. So that's what I feel is done often with resin shells, is they allow the resin shell to be done in a specific manner and to vibrate in a specific manner, much like you see a bone conduction. The bone conduction is also going to introduce vibrations. So the vibration of the shell, it introduces a certain resonance, and that resonance, if it's well done and if they've actually done their homework, it helps with the tonality, and the tonality of the Dragon is phenomenal. I mean, in that aspect, I have to give them top marks. A really good timbre and tonality. The bass is incredible, mids and upper mids very good. There's no harshness, there's no sibilance. It's just all about being smooth, but with authority. It's got a smooth, authoritative musicality to it, but at the same time it's highly detailed, highly capable, of going in, fetching all the micro and macro details that you want. Great soundstage, great imaging, although I would say those two are not perhaps the best, especially when you consider its price point. Overall, I think, like I said, bass and extension, so the two extremes of the frequency range and the timbre and tonality are what catches your attention in the Moritz Dragon. It's what immediately grabs you, okay? And it's down to the fact that yes, they're using a beryllium driver, which helps with the extension up top. The bass being the way that it is also helped by the fact that they've done what they've done with the shell, most likely. Being a beryllium driver, it makes also the bass not only to be authoritative but be speedy, so there's no sluggishness, no nothing. So overall, what I can say about the Dragon is it is a very, very good driver, or very good IEM rather. The $600 price point obviously is the issue. Let's put it that way. Is it worth that amount of money? In my personal opinion, no, it's not worth that kind of money. I think that if they have made, or if they had established a price point of about $300, they would have sold way more, way more, and it would make a lot more sense, because then, it would be an IM that would be in the choices when compared to other stuff that is here, which is closer to that $300 price point. So I'm talking about Fermat, I'm talking about Origen, I'm talking about it would be closer. So you could maybe at $300 go and fetch those clients that want a really good mid-tier single DD with a little bit extra, let's say, magic, a little bit more special sauce, which this does have, but it also has a price which is appealing. $650 is not an appealing price. I mean, I guess the same can be said about the Twilight, although I haven't listened to the Twilight, so I cannot give a definite opinion about how it sounds. But I am very confident in what I'm about to say. I am sure that however good Twilight sounds, it also doesn't justify anything to have that sort of price. Fair enough, they use a special helmets resonating system to make the bass a little bit better than what it is, and I'm not detracting anything from that, and obviously that has its costs and so on involved. But there is nothing to justify its price. And it's not only that, at that value, you have a number of other IEMs, hybrids, fair enough, more drivers, fair enough, but that are more capable and that, just do an overall better job. A single DD's magic lies in its coherence, lies in the fact that everything comes from a single source. There's no issues with delays, time delay between drivers. And yes, I can understand that when some special technology is being used, that you would perhaps ask a little bit more money. Okay, that's fair enough. I just feel that the Twilight's price is just out of context, or $800 roughly. I mean, it's again, if you told me $400, okay, fine, fair enough. Look, the same situation happened with the MIM Dark Magician. Initially, it was around $300 price point, and then it quickly escalated to $600 for a driver that costs $7 or $8. That was put into a shell, and that okay, maybe was subjected to some R&D, but most likely it was very much a case of throw it in there, it actually sounds good, let's not touch it, sell it. That's most likely what happened with the MIM Dark Magician. That's why its second version wasn't as capable in many respects compared to the original. The second version of the MIM Dark Magician was, by comparison, a failure, and just shows that the first one, the luck that they found in the sound that they obtained was more luck than actually ingenuity, was more luck than just actually hard work and wanting to tune it that way. But anyway, I'm not carry on. Moritz Dragon, phenomenal IM. its price is the only thing that holds it back, in my opinion. Cadence. The cadence is, to cut a very long story short, is in essence a slightly better executed Kato. The difference between this and the Kato is that you have a little bit more energy there in that pin gain area. I mean, we're talking maybe a dB and a half at most, so it will be difficult to notice it, but the balance that is being then struck between that and the bass versus the balance that's struck in the Kato versus the bass from that area to the bass makes the Kato sound perhaps a little bit more warmer, a little bit more bass heavy, and this is very relative, while the cadence sounds a little bit more open and detailed. Honestly, when I listen to them, unless it's a very specific song, if it's something like Alchemy from Philip Says, or Jack of Speed by Steely Dan, or maybe even Aphrodite from Friedman, there maybe you can see, okay, the cadence has got that little extra special sauce. It's really good, it's got that little extra magic. Other than that, honestly, it's incredibly difficult to tell the difference between the two of them. That's one thing. On the other hand, you also have the fact that how it fits in your ear will be very much dictating how it sounds. And like I said, with the stock tips, I was having absolutely no bass because the tip was just collapsing it every time I was introducing it into my ear. So I ended up having to use the other BGVP wide boards, which was the best thing I could have ever done. No more tip collapsing, therefore no loss of bass performance, and actually the overall balance sounded way better than when with the original tips I wasn't having any tip collapsing, but it just sounded thin all the time. So with the stock tips, the cadence, in my opinion, sounds overly thin. It's a more technically versed IM versus the Moritz, which is more musical, it's more organic, but with a high level of technicality. This is more technically capable. So if I was to talk about technicalities, pure and simple, this technically is superior to the Moritz, okay, but it doesn't have the Moritz's bass, firstly by virtue of the way that it's been tuned, and then also the fact that it uses a metal shell. It brings with benefits and brings with it also as well some obstacles. The benefit is the bass is super clean, super detailed, super resolving, but being a metal shell also takes away those resonances that I was talking about. So it sounds a little bit cold. Maybe if the bass had been a little bit more emphasized, it wouldn't sound as cold, but it sounds a little bit more cold. So the overall balance that you get out of the cadence is of a sound which is detailed, highly technical, will very much be pleasing those that are technically inclined, that like details galore and so on and so forth. But you cannot consider this, or I wouldn't consider this an IM which is highly musical or very musically or focused, okay? So that's that. Next to that, the TinHifi. So, sorry, just before I carry on here with the TinHifi, just to wrap up here the cadence. Bass, I said it's clean, mids are phenomenal, highs phenomenal, nothing to be said there. Technically, it's an absolute beast. So, soundstage imaging, timbre and tonality is a little bit on the colder side, and especially when you come from something like this, or you listen to the timbre and the tonality of, for example, the Kima 2, or you listen to the timbre and tonality of the Fiio, the FD15, or you listen to the timbre and tonality of the Origen, which are for me IMs which have or the Vortex from Penon, which have more pleasant timbre and tonality. In my opinion, this sounds just cold. It doesn't sound as nice, let's put it that way. So that's it. Next to that, the TinHifi, the T7. The T7 basically is a T5S again, and what they've done is they've extended the past 10K area, and they've given more energy to the area between the peak of between the pin gain and that 8K area. They've energized more that area. It's also a significantly way easier IM to drive than the T5S, and what that means is that you don't have to give it much volume and it plays loud. It plays plenty loud. However, the way that the bass has been done in the T7, much like on the T5S and on the Moritz, which is that gliding style of bass, makes it have a sound which is maybe not the most ideal if it's a genre of music which has a lot of mid bass impact, where yes, you notice that the Moritz also it's not in its element 100%. It does it well, But if it's a song that has lots of rumble, so if it's a music genre which requires more rumble, more presence, more of the bass than necessarily more impact of the bass, the T7 is absolutely incredible in that aspect, much like the T5S already was. So bass, it's really extended, goes deep, deep, deep. Maybe you don't get sometimes that perception of how deep it goes because of the energy that it has in the upper mids and the treble, but the bass goes deep. Its mid bass is a little bit on the thin side, but still adequate. Clean mids, upper mids and treble, phenomenal. Look, this is very much like the Kadenz, so a more technically inclined IM. However, they've been able to pull off something here which I'm guessing it's just basically down to the driver, and because it's also a metal shell, it's also and which allows it to have a timbre and tonality which is just a little bit more realistic and way more pleasant than the timbre and the tonality of the Kadenz, at least to my ears. I'm not taking anything away from the Kadenz, mind you, but at least I would say the timbre and tonality here are more on the level of the timbre and tonality of the Kato, which for me is where the Kato outdoes the Kadenz. The Kadenz here is what I'll do the Kato ever so slightly in terms of soundstage and imaging and detail retrieval, ever so slightly. The Kato does a better job when it comes to the timbre and tonality. The overall sound and tonality that the instruments have sounds more realistic and less fatiguing there. This goes more towards that. Although, yes, in some occasions you do feel that the instruments sound just a little bit overly emphasized, just a little bit, kind of. It's kind of when you take a picture with your phone and then you start using those apps or you use some features in the phone's camera to clear up the picture and to edit the picture so you don't see the wrinkles in your face and so on and so forth. It's kind of a little bit like that. It's nicely done because the way that it's been executed, it does still maintain a high level of realism, of authenticity, but you notice that it's been worked, okay? The Kadenz from Moondrop does exactly the same thing, but I just feel that the TinHifi does it ever so slightly better. So, bass, extended, clean, detailed, nothing to be said there. In terms of the mids, phenomenal detail, mids, upper mids, treble, male and female vocals, very much like the Kadenz, very equal, but still a little bit more, okay? However, and again, I just cannot explain, although it's more energetic than the Kadenz, it sounds, in terms of its balance, more realistic. It has a slightly more sense of musicality than the Kadenz has. The Kadenz will sound comparatively just ever so more sterile. Again, guys, I'm nitpicking here. This is minor things, okay? So, solid IM. Like the Kadenz, the TinHifi, the T7 is an IM for those that like more detail in their music, more worried about the technical aspect of things than necessarily the musicality, although they are obviously as well musical. I mean, at this price you expect it to be musical as well. And then finally here, the Ucotech, the R3, and this was very much a surprise. It has a tuning which is very similar to the R1, but it's been polished up. I think a lot of it is down to the fact that they've changed the shell shape. They're not using that kind of bullet style like they use on the R1 Pro. The shell shape has helped, and as well, apparently, like I said, there's some system internally. You can get the feeling, or you get the perception, that the driver also sits very close to the nozzle, as you can see here by. Let's see if this thing will focus. Come on. There you go. You get by this recess that you find here in the shell. It kind of seems as well that the driver sits very close to the nozzle exit and facing most of it directly. It's not positioned sideways like you see in many IEMs. Sound, again, it's got that style of bass like we had in the T7 and we have in the Moritz, so it's a more sub-bass focused presence, with the mid-bass being a little bit lighter, a little bit leaner. Phenomenal mids again, phenomenal mids. I would say this is the IM that probably in its stock format comes the closest. There's two others here, but this is probably one of the one that comes one of the ones that comes the closest to the Moritz, to the Dragon. And I'm saying this just so you guys to understand that yes, the Moritz Dragon is a phenomenal IM. Yes, it does sound great. It's fantastic, but you can get very much the same sort of sound, if that's the sound that you like, from an IM which is significantly cheaper. Interesting thing is that although it's got a metal shell, the bass also sounds very much like the bass of the Dragon. It does have that timbre and that tonality, which again I think it's down to the way that they've internally, wired things, in the way that they've done things internally. Because being a metal shell, it should be a little bit colder sounding. Once again, I'm going to repeat a lot of what I said before, but for the T7, great bass, extended, clean, detailed. That's the CNT driver they're using here is really, really good. Mids, upper mids and treble, really good, extended, loads of detail, high level of musicality. I think the in terms of its technical capabilities, it's very balanced. It basically, there's no standout one, but on the other hand, all of them are very equal. So you have a really nice sound stage, a really nice imaging ability, very nice resolution, very nice timbre and tonality. So there's no particular technicality that truly stands out. Okay, that shines, like in the case of the Moritz, it's the timbre and tonality. In the case of the Kadenz and on the T7, it's the sound stage and the imaging and the detail retrieval. They stand out. Over here, they're all very equal, so I can't really say, oh, this is the best technical feature that it has. It just sounds really, really nice. It was definitely a surprise. Now, to put things into a little bit of a perspective on how they stand and how they compare to each other. Like I said, the Kato and the Kadenz, they are very much equal to each other. These are two very more technically orientated IEMs. They follow more the Tanchjim oxygen type of sound, although I would say that the oxygen maybe in terms of the bass is a little bit more towards my liking. I would say that the execution in terms of the upper mids and treble of the Kadenz, yes, is the most detailed of the three, but not by much. I mean, they very much trade blows. There's not a lot of differences between these IEMs. That's the truth. So these are the Kadenz is an IEM for that person that wants details. It's an IEM that will very much kind of follow the philosophy of the LM5 of the 500 LM, although the 500 LM has significantly more bass, so it makes things more engaging. But it's an IM which is also very detailed up top. It's got more that vibe. The T7, like the T5S, it's very similar, although this got significantly more extension than the T7. So the T7 will again be an IM that's more, let's say, maybe warmer sounding. So different crowd of person, two different people will like these IMs. They complement each other well. The T7 is again an IM that goes like along the lines of the oxygen, or along the lines of the Clavelon. The Clavelon Delta is also along these lines, although the Clavelon is a little bit more on the warmer side, although it kind of has graphically at least a tuning which is very similar to the Kadenz and to the T7. And these IMs are, let's say, the more detailed, so the Kato, the Kadenz, the T7, the 500 LM, the Clavelon Delta, the oxygen. These are the more detailed IMs, the ones that have the more technical kind of capability. Okay, then we have the other group of IEMs here, which are going to be more musical, more along the lines of what I personally prefer, which is the case of the Falcon Ultra, the Kima 2, the Oriolus Isabellae, the Vortex, the Fermat, the Fiio, the Origen. They are more organic sounding. Okay, and that's where then something like the Moritz Dragon will be going along, or will face those IEMs, although it does have an advantage over some of them, which is in terms of its extension up top. Yes, it is more capable. In terms of the bass, that's where it's interesting. Although the bass is very present, it's very much there. You feel that, or when you listen to something like the Falcon Ultra or the Kima, that although they don't have the same sub bass extension, but they compensate that by a very tastefully added amount of mid bass, they don't sound as different as you would think. Okay, So they all have a very nice bass, although yes, it is very easy to perceive that the Kima 2 or the Falcon Ultra have got a little bit more mid-bass presence, and that lack that let's say that presence of bass without it being noticeable, which is what the Moritz Dragon does. This here, the Fermat again fits within more this Moritz Dragon type of vibe, although it's again a little bit more mid-bassy. All right, the Vortex on the top there, audibly it sounds very similar to the Dragon, although graphically they graph completely different. The balance that they've struck between the bass, the sub bass, the bass, the mids, the upper mids, and the treble is so well done that it just sounds a hell of a lot more detailed than what you would think by looking at the graph. It doesn't sound as neutral as what the graph tells you, and that what I said about that applies as well to the JD, to the FD15. The FD15 is just an incredible sounding IM. Okay, really, I mean, that's the truth. That the Vortex, the FD, the Origen, they all have this balance that they are able to strike between the bass, the mids, the upper mids, and the treble, which is just makes for a very easy to listen to IM. They are all very easy to listen, non-fatiguing IMs, and that's what you get here on the Moritz Dragon. You get that type of sound with just a little bit extra more detail up top. Does that extra little detail up top make up for the price difference? In my opinion, no, it doesn't. Okay, it doesn't. Yes, it's got a little bit more extra detail. Yes, if you're listening to specific songs, you might pick up on that extra detail there. But if you listen to more, let's say, common genres, you will not really see that difference or perceive that difference. Let me see here, for example, Swept Away from Karel Duboc. It sounds phenomenal in any one of those that I mentioned. Be it the FD15, be it the Vortex, be it the Origen, be it the Moritz, it sounds even on the Kima. I mean, the Kima 2, do not underestimate that IM. And trust me, do not underestimate that IM. That IM is something else. The Moritz just has a little bit extra treble extension, a little bit more twinklies and sparklies that make it stand out occasionally, like House of Groove from Eugene Groove. Maybe a little bit better, maybe questionable. It will depend on how it fits your ears and what source you're using. You by Cecil Norby, again maybe, but is that difference sufficient for the price? In my opinion, no. And I'm not taking anything away from the Moritz Dragon, mind you. This is a really good IM. I just feel that they should have sold this significantly cheaper. If they had sold this for the value that I was mentioning earlier, around the $300, I would have bought it. $600, no way in hell. But $300, that would be an IM that I would buy. It would make sense to have it in my collection. Okay. As for the R3, like I said, it was a surprising IM. I wasn't expecting it to be as competent as it is. I would say that it has kind of that nice balance between this let's say more musical organic sound of something like the Kima or the Falcon or you know the FD15 or the Origen, and that little bit more extra detail that you get, that a little bit more extra technical capability that you get from the likes of 500 LM, or even to a certain degree as well from the Clavelon Delta. You know, it strikes a nice balance, and it's just a very easy to listen to IM. Now, there are two IMs here that I said were surprises, in that in their stock format, and one is still stock, I was not expecting it to sound as close to the Dragon as it sounds, and that is the Pirole. The resin, this unit that I have here, look, there's nothing here. The only thing here that's not stock is the cable. The tips are the stock tips. Everything is stock, and this thing as it is here, it just sounds almost identical to the Dragon. It is actually quite scary. It sounds really close to the Dragon. I would say the Dragon has just marginally a little bit more bass, that resonance, that I would not, it's not visceral, but it's that presence of bass, just a little bit more, a little bit more, and a little bit more extension up top. But when you think that this costs $40, that costs $650, you have to give it props. I mean, you have to. Okay. And the other one here is the R1 Pro. Stock, no, you notice that there's a difference, and the R3 is definitely better. With a small mod that I did on it, okay, I did a very small mod here on my R1 Pro. Wow, the difference that exists between this and the Dragon is honestly almost negligible. The Dragon is a little bit easier to drive, so on the same volume setting it will sound louder, but if I adjust the volume then for the Ucotech, for the R1 Pro, this thing, it's basically the Dragon for a sixth of the price, let's put it that way. So what I'm saying is, if you think the Dragon and the sound the Dragon has is something that will appeal to you, okay, but you cannot afford it, but you can afford something like the R1 Pro, and you can live with this shell, which isn't, you know, it's not an easy shell to fit. I have to say that this kind of bullet style shells are not always easy, but you can live with the shell, and you are willing to do this small little mod that I've done, which again is not a difficult mod to do. You will have basically a Dragon for a hell of a lot less money, and you will be able to experience what the Dragon offers in terms of sound, which is that really extended type of sound in terms of bass and highs, then complemented very adequately with the meat of the sound spectrum, you know, the mids, the upper mids. They just complement that. While sometimes, you know, the bass is the start of the show, or then the treble is the start of the show, or maybe sometimes the mids are the start of the show, and then the rest maybe fits in properly or doesn't fit in. You know, here it's the extremes of the frequency. In the case of the Dragon, it's the extremes of the frequency which are the start of the show. The extension past 10K and the sub bass, so it's kind of the atmosphere that's generated in the upper frequencies, and then the presence of air moving, okay, in the lower frequencies that make it sound as competent as it does, and then it's very well filled in by the mids. So without question, although they didn't use any special tech here, they didn't go with any fancy stuff or anything, the sound is absolutely really well done. That's the truth. Finally, compared with the Oriolus, because it's the only other IEM here that has the same price value, I mean, look, they are two totally different IEMs. The Moritz, yes, more capable in terms of its extension up top. I wouldn't say technically it's more capable. I think the Oriolus technically is very much the same thing. You know, timbre and tonality is phenomenal on the Oriolus as well. I really have a hard time picking between the two of them in terms of the timbre and tonality. Soundstage very equal, imaging very equal. You just have a little bit more clarity in the Moritz because of the way that it's been tuned. A little more clarity. You have that, you know, that area that sometimes I mentioned to you in terms of the 100 Hertz and what it corresponds then in the mids or upper mids. In the Moritz it corresponds to roughly 3K, and I have found that that's the sweet spot. When 100 Hertz corresponds to about 3K or very close to 3K, and then the information that's below 100 Hertz and the information that's above 3K is not that, or is equally matched. It's either flat, neutral on either side, or if it still increases, it's increased in equal manner from one side to the other. That's when you hit the sweet spot in terms of for me, at least in my ears, of sound. And that's what they've obtained here in the Moritz, and that's why it sounds so good. When we look at that same detail, for example, in the Kadenz or in the T7, it's well done, but the focus is definitely on the mids and on the highs, also on the vocals to be the star of the show. Although they have a bass which is very similar here to the bass of the especially the T7 to the Dragon, that matching, and when I show you the graphs you'll understand what I mean, has just been done in a less ideal manner, more so in the Kadenz, in my opinion, than on the T7. The T7 is actually, I would say the T7 to be absolute perfect, a little bit less than what it has, but not as low as the T5S. I think that would have been that would have been spot on for the T7. The T5S is perhaps a little bit too warm, making things simple. This is perhaps a little bit too energetic, a little bit less, just, you know, an in between. That would have been the ideal. I think that would have been the perfect, or then actually give the mids and the majority of the upper mids of the T5S, give that to this, and then maintain the extension that the T7 has past 10K, which the T5 doesn't have. So maintain the extension past 10K here of this, with the mids, upper mids, and the bass that both of them have, and you would have had a perfect T7. Anyway, guys, the reality is this. All of these IMs are really good in their own right. There's nothing really here that you can, I mean, even something like the Cloud, okay, I didn't even mention anything about it, you know, in detail. It's a good IM, it sounds good, but of course when you take, okay, it's $160 and you compare it to something like the FD, in my opinion the FD is just a better IM. Or if I take it and I compare it to the Fermat, which uses the same sort of implementation, the Fermat is better. Yes, it's a little bit more expensive, but it's a better IM. The Kima too is a better IM, in the sense that the overall sound that it gets is enough to justify the price difference, and the Cloud doesn't bring anything extra to the equation to justify its added price point compared to something like the Kima 2. Understand? So they all are good. They all have their pluses and their minuses. They all have their clientele. They will all have their specific crowd of people that will appreciate them for what they are. If you want technicalities, if you want that kind of crowd, then yes, Kadenz, perfect, amazing. T7 as well, the same situation. If you like a more organic presentation, if you like that more or old school type of sound with a very high level or very high degree of technicalities, Moritz, perfectly. I mean, amazing. With a little bit less details, because that's the Kima 2 is incredible. The Vortex, same thing. The FD, same thing. The R3, the same thing. So you know, it's all down to what is the type of sound that you like. Go for that, and then yes, it's kind of a hit and miss, because you know, you might like the sound of the Moritz, you might like the sound of the Kadenz, but when you put it in your ear, because of your ear anatomy, it just doesn't sound as well or as good as you would expect. So if you have the ability to actually try it out, fine, you know, try them out. Yes, it's what it is. Tony was right, he wasn't talking out of his ass. Perfect, I'm gonna get it. If you cannot do that and you want to be safe, or you know, then you just have to go for the cheaper IMs. That's the reality. And in terms of the cheaper IMs here, without question, the 500 LM is a phenomenal IM. A phenomenal IM. The fact that it's got those adjustable nozzles and you can make your own tuning, that's, I mean, it's a no-brainer. The Kima 2, again, in my opinion, another phenomenal IM. Really good. The Pirole, I mean, guys, trust me. For 30 odd bucks that this thing costs, I mean, this is like BQEYZ Cadenz of money. This thing is surreal, honestly. I'm being very honest. This thing is really good, really good. At least the unit that I have, I've got another one on the way, because I wanted to confirm that I don't have here a white elephant. You know, I want to make sure that I have got the real deal. This thing is phenomenal. All right. Anyway, I'll show you the graphs and we'll wrap it up.